It is now being revealed, and we can report here on the MeidasTouch network, that Donald Trump was apparently cursing audibly. He was doing it under his breath, but it was loud enough where the judge could hear and the jury could hear at his criminal trial on Tuesday while Stormy Daniels was testifying. Specifically, when Stormy Daniels was testifying about what went down when Donald Trump invited her into his hotel room where he was wearing, as she described it, a Hugh Hefner-esque robe, and Donald Trump was comparing her to Ivanka, saying, "You both have blonde hair and you're both misunderstood. You remind me of my daughter, Stormy." And then when Stormy Daniels went into the bathroom and came back and Donald Trump was in his boxer shorts, and she described how she was then spanking Donald Trump with a magazine and what else they were talking about. Donald Trump was apparently cursing. The jury could hear it. The judge could hear it. There was a moment that took place that we weren't able to see, reporters there weren't able to see, based on where they were positioned, where the judge asked Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, to come to the bench to do what's called a sidebar. Now, these sidebars are out of the the jury can see that a sidebar is taking place. The reporters could see that a sidebar is taking place. Like, you could see the lawyers there, but they're whispering and they're saying it low. And then a court reporter's there, though, to take down everything that's happening so there can be a full record of the trial, and potentially a record if there's ever an appeal, or a record if there's ever a dispute, what goes down or what went down. So here's what we now learned happened at the sidebar after Donald Trump was apparently cursing during the testimony in the presence of the jury. And Justice Merchan said that behavior is contemptuous. Here's what went down. The court said, "Mr. Blanche, you need to come to sidebar," referring to Donald Trump's lawyer. So Donald Trump's lawyer walked up, went to the sidebar, and then they were talking. Imagine a court reporter there, writing everything down. And this is what the court said. "Look, Mr. Blanche, I understand that your client is upset at this point, but he is cursing audibly and he is shaking his head visually, and that's contemptuous. It has the potential to intimidate the witness, and the jury can see it." Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's lawyer, said, "Look, I will talk to him. I'll talk to him." The court said, "So I am speaking to you here at the bench because I don't want to embarrass him." Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's lawyer, said, "I will talk to him." And the court said, "You need to speak to him. I won't tolerate that." Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, said, "I will talk to him." The court said, "One time I noticed when Miss Daniels was testifying about rolling up the magazine and presumably smacking your client. And after that point, he shook his head and he looked down," as Caitlin Collins reports. This was not audible in the room, so the jury didn't hear this. The jury was aware that a discussion was happening, but the jury likely saw and heard Donald Trump cursing in the courtroom and behaving that way. Caitlin Collins from CNN also writes, "This was after Stormy Daniels testified about swatting Donald Trump with a magazine that had him on the cover. When Donald Trump left trial on Tuesday, he said that the day was a big day. He said it was a very revealing day." Yes, it was. It was a very revealing day during Stormy Daniels' testimony. Play this clip.
"So this was a very big day, a very revealing day. As you see, their case is totally falling apart. They have nothing on books and records, and even something that should bear very little relationship to the case. It's just a disaster for the DA, for the Soros-backed DA. It's a disaster. This whole case is just a disaster. If you read the legal scholars, you'll see, because they're writing about it, they've never seen anything quite like it. And neither have I. I should be out."
And then one of the things that Donald Trump said as well as he was leaving trial was, "I want you to read Mark Levin and Jonathan Turley. You need to read these right-wing reporters. They're very smart. You need to read them." Here, play this clip.
Again, this was a very revealing day in court. Any honest reporter would say that. I would recommend you read Jonathan Turley and Andrew McCarthy and Alan Dershowitz, Greg Jarrett, Mark Levin, very talented people, and others. There's some incredible people out there that are writing about this trial. They're calling it a disgrace. It's a disgrace. in the
I don't know, Donald. I think I'm going to stick with the evidence. I think I'm going to follow the facts. I think I'm not going to listen to the spin of your right-wing propaganda networks, and I'm going to look at documents like this that were generated by your former controller who worked at the Trump Organization for 40 years, who talks about reimbursing Michael Cohen $130,000 for the payments made to Stormy Daniels, grossing it up by multiplying it by 2 so that if taxes were taken out, Cohen would get the money after getting reimbursed. I think I would also look at the handwritten notes of Alan Weisselberg, which also confirm the same. I think I would look at like the bank records. I think I would look at like the photographs of you and Stormy Daniels. I think I would look at the statements that you've made. I think that's the type of stuff that I would be looking at. And who I'm interested in hearing from too is Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who worked at the district attorney's office for nearly 30 years. She was the number 2 at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And here's what Karen Friedman Agnifilo told us exclusively at the MeidasTouch Network about the testimony by Stormy Daniels. Let's play this clip.
And, look, she also talked about Trump's wife, that, Trump said that, Melania is very beautiful, but we don't sleep in the same room. Apparently Trump shook his head at that point. She talked about, the whole thing about, he asked her about condoms and does she wear condoms as a porn star? Of course, everyone knows he's a germaphobe. Then like at one point before they have sex, he's like, he reminds me of Ivanka. I realize the context that it was in, it seemed like it made sense. But when you know that he then had sex with her afterwards, it's so disgusting. I don't know.
And then Karen Friedman Agnifilo talked about the moment where after morning recess, Donald Trump's lawyers demanded a mistrial. Now, if you think the trial is going well, like Donald Trump is pretending, one, why are you cursing? Why are you also posting all of these things that he posted? The trial's unfair. This is a witch hunt. This is horrible. This is corrupt. All of the things that you were doing during the break. And then Trump requested a mistrial. One of the things that Justice Merchan pointed out to Donald Trump's lawyers is, what are you talking about? You didn't object to most of this stuff. I was surprised. This is what Justice Merchan said to Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche. I hear you. You got to take responsibility over your own conduct, Mr. Blanche. Why weren't you objecting to some of the questions that were being asked? You could have objected. That's on you. Here's what Karen Friedman Agnifilo, or how Karen Friedman Agnifilo described the mistrial motion. Here, play this clip.
And, look, she also talked about Trump's wife, that, Trump said that, Melania is very beautiful, but we don't sleep in the same room. Apparently Trump shook his head at that point. She talked about, the whole thing about, he asked her about condoms and does she wear condoms as a porn star? Of course, everyone knows he's a germaphobe. Then like at one point before they have sex, he's like, he reminds me of Ivanka. I realize the context that it was in, it seemed like it made sense. But when you know that he then had sex with her afterwards, it's so disgusting. I don't know.
And then it should be noted too, Donald Trump's statement when he walked into trial, where he essentially admits to the crime. And he's like, it was legal reimbursements. What else would I call it? It wasn't illegal. It wasn't a legal expense. It was a hush money payment. It wasn't legal expenses. That's the whole thing of what this case is about. But watch Donald Trump essentially admit to the crime in the morning. Play this clip.
Morning America, they said, we heard that expense payments to lawyers are legal expenses. You pay a lawyer expense payments. We didn't put it down as construction costs, the purchase of sheetrock, the electrical cost. The legal expense that we paid was put down as legal expense. There's nothing else you could say. You don't have to put down anything, I guess. But we put down legal expense was legal expense. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Attorney? And everyone's saying, oh, gee, that's the fraud. That's what they're trying to get us on. The fact that we call a legal expense a legal expense. They marked it down in the books. The check was signed.
And notice, too, he has to look at his lawyer and go, Mr. Lawyer, I'm not sure he knows his own lawyer's name. Look, I just want to bring you the facts. Ultimately, I don't know what a jury's going to do. I don't, and I'm not trying to profess that I can get into their minds. What I can show you are these data points. Trump cursing, them demanding a mistrial, the judge saying, control your client, and this behavior by Donald Trump, and then show you the documents and the data so you can ultimately decide for yourself where you think this thing goes. But to me, that's what we're about. We're about sharing the data, and the data right now is Donald Trump is cursing like a maniac in the courtroom. I'm Ben Meiselas. This is the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers together. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you. It's free to subscribe, so hit subscribe right now. Thanks.
Enough! Send him to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.